Welcome to the Timeline Rewatch, where we cover all of the Marvel Cinematic Universe movies, one-shots, TV series, everything in chronological order. This week we have Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, directed by James Gunn, starring Chris Pratt, Zoe Saldana, Vin Diesel, Bradley Cooper, and Dave Bautista again. Release date was May 5th, 2017, and the timeline date on this is actually only 2 months following Guardians 1. October 2014, and lasts about a week.
Okay.
As always, my name is Justin, here with my co-host, Jacob. How are you doing?
Doing good. Ready to dive back into this, our misfit heroes, and figure out what happens in this volume.
Yeah, last week we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy 1. A couple days ago, we talked about Guardians of the Galaxy 3, which was a full spoiler episode. So if you missed that one, don't go listen to it unless you have seen Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3.
So now we go backwards and fill in the gaps.
Yes. For real. We do the movie in between the two. So major things that happen in this movie. We learn more about Peter Quill's Peter Quill's past with his father and how his mother died. We find out why Yondu never delivered him to Ego, his dad.
Yeah. And
Yondu's Ravengers are all but decimated except for Kraglin.
Yep.
So that's the too long didn't listen version of the episode.
Yep.
Now 5 fun facts about the movie. These ones are slightly longer because they're all very interesting though. So, when director James Gunn was writing the script for the movie, he proposed the idea of Ego, the living planet, being Star-Lord's father. Marvel told him that they did not have the rights to the character. It was actually owned by Fox and FX. They belonged to 20th Century Fox because of his ties to the Fantastic Four and the Silver Surfer franchises. Since Gunn had no other characters in mind for Star-Lord's father, he asked Fox personally if he could use the character. Fortunately, Fox agreed to let Marvel have Ego in return for Fox gaining more creative freedom over Negasonic Teenage Warhead's set of superpowers in Deadpool. So in exchange for Ego, Fox got Deadpool.
Okay.
And now Deadpool's back to the MCU.
Yeah.
So that was fun fact number 1.
Okay, I like that.
Fun fact number 2. In the Guardians of the Galaxy comics, Taserface, we all love Taserface, is a warrior from the cybernetically enhanced race known as the Stark. The Stark are an alien race that found Iron Man technology that had accidentally crashed on their planet, and as a result, they worship Tony Stark as their god.
Oh my god. Yep, that checks out.
Baby Groot is actually the offspring of Groot, not the same character, as confirmed by James Gunn on Twitter, where he posted, first Groot is dead, Baby Groot is his son.
Okay, that's interesting.
Number 4, Laura Haddock, Meredith Quill, Peter Quill's mother, also appeared in Captain America: The First Avenger as a fan of Captain America.
Oh, okay.
Not the same character, though.
Yeah, well, right.
Same actor.
Yeah,
actress.
Same actress.
Not. And then we talked about product placement in The Winter Soldier with Chevy and Under Armour and stuff like that. Dairy Queen, what you would think is a huge product placement here, is not.
Huh. So they just...
Dairy Queen is not here as product placement. It's a place that reminds Gunn of his childhood and is meant to be a marker to encourage memories of youth and the 80s. He stated, "I will never make product placement more important than the story I'm telling." I'm going to really miss James Gunn in MCU because he's leaving for DCU and to basically be the Kevin Feige of DC.
Right.
So.
Huh. That's weird. Yeah, I would have, not knowing that, I would have thought the Dairy Queen was a sponsor in there.
I have a bonus one.
Okay.
Bonus number 6. I tracked all the animals that Rocket gets called in this movie. All the different names.
Okay.
He gets called a raccoon, of course. He gets called a trash panda by Peter. So this is the scene where he calls him a stupid raccoon. He's like, shut up, I'm not a raccoon. And he's like, oh, right, you're a trash panda. And everybody's just like, is that worse? And he's like, no, it's way worse.
Yeah.
Or is it better? And he says, no, it's way worse. He gets called a triangle-faced monkey by Ego.
Yep.
And he's just like, what's going on? He gets called a fox twice by Nebula.
Yep.
A raboon, Groot meaning to say raccoon. And he's like, no, I'm not a raboon. Oh, I'm not a raccoon either. And then he gets called by a crabby puppy by Mantis. And then he gets called rat by Yondu.
Nice.
So,
Poor guy.
Doesn't even know what he is.
Yep.
Well, or does he?
Well,
he eventually does. Spoiler. All right. I have a couple oopsies moments.
Okay.
Peter mentions that he pretended his father was David Hasselhoff, and that he was either way shooting films or touring Germany with his band. His band never really became successful and hit the charts until 1989.
Which was a year after. Oh, okay.
Baby Groot actually yells "we" at the beginning, not "I am Groot." So he says "we."
Oh, okay. I missed that.
I want to know how Peter is not half like dead, because half of his life form is removed when they destroy the planet.
Yeah, that's a fair point.
And then last one here, Star-Lord's father, Ego, should have turned into a younger David Hasselhoff instead of an older one, because since he had no way of knowing how older David Hasselhoff would look like what he would look like.
Yeah.
So, but he turned into like current David Hasselhoff.
Right.
So.
No, that's a good point.
Just some notes.
Good point.
All right. So, the movie starts on Earth with Ego and Peter's mom, Meredith, about them meeting. Yeah, Meredith knows that he's not from Earth, calls him a spaceman, stuff like that. It's interesting that they get together. He shows them the plant that he planted on Earth. We find out that that's a really bad thing.
Yes.
And then it literally jumps 34 years. Interesting here, another fun fact. Kurt Russell is actually 34 years older than the person that plays Meredith.
Oh, okay.
So he's actually 34 years older than Laura Haddock.
Gotcha.
So 34 years later was an interesting timeline that they actually put in there.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're at that fight scene with the big alien thing.
Yep.
And Drax mentions that he has sensitive nipples and doesn't wear suits. But in Guardians 3, people see this in the trailer, so this is not a spoiler. He wears a full suit, and he also does it in the Christmas special too. So
yeah,
the holiday special. So what happened to his sensitive nipples?
I don't know.
You might have to watch Guardians 3 to find out. I thought this was the best intro to any of the Marvel movies.
Yeah.
And this is actually one of, I think, 4 movies that actually has like a full credit introduction scene.
Yeah.
I think the other ones were like Iron Man and I can't remember the other one. Anyways, this was beautifully done. Yeah. Groot's dancing was actually done by James Gunn himself.
Oh, that's cool.
They put him into the suit to do it, and he actually choreographed and did it himself.
Oh, that's cool.
And then they did all the special effects with him in there. So, you talked about last week in Guardians where when he's dancing and Drax looks at him, he always freezes. Yep. He does that here again, and freezes when Drax looks. And then Drax eventually destroys the radio, and Groot gets upset with him and starts touching him, beating him up. Interesting enough, when the song suddenly ends and Groot slaps Drax's shoulder, the next line of the song is actually, now his hand is on your shoulder.
That's awesome.
So I was like, that is like a perfect fit. Like that's exactly when the song ends there.
That's awesome.
So, Drax basically commits suicide by going into the monsters, the belly of the beast, because he thinks he can stab it from the inside, even though it's the same thickness. But I get his point. It's more softer.
Yeah.
Like you feel like it would be more softer inside because it's all wet and stuff.
Right.
So I get it. I also kind of thought that the same thing, but then when like Peter and Gamora are talking about like it's the same toughness.
Well, I mean, but think back to the Avengers. Isn't that how they defeated the big worm that came through? Somebody flew into it or jumped into it and beat it from the inside.
Iron Man did, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know.
I mean, he flew right. I don't know.
I don't know. It's not a bad idea, but if you're having trouble penetrating the skin already, then it's kind of like, okay, well, it's probably not going to work, even if you go from the inside. So
yeah. So
but then I'm curious as to what scarred it then.
Right.
I
mean, it had to have been something.
Something.
Yeah. So we find out the whole reason for this was because they're trying to protect the Anulix batteries, which Drax confuses for Harbulary batteries, which comes back later. And we find out that the Sovereign hired them to protect the batteries and destroy that monster to get Nebula back, who also tried to steal batteries. Mm-hmm. But that was their exchange, was the batteries for Nebula. But Rocket stole some of the batteries, and that brought the Sovereign out to attack them at the end. So,
yeah.
Interesting fight scene too. Like those ship scenes, because they were all remotely piloted. They're not actually killing anybody,
right?
Which was the whole fun that Drax and Rocket were having, because they were going to kill people.
Yes. And then the fact that they tried to fly through the asteroid field when everybody else was around
the quantum asteroid field. They have this whole scene about which destroys their ship altogether, right. And then everybody just flew around.
Yeah,
like that checks out.
Yeah, it's funny. Like having watched the Star Wars movies, almost every movie they fly through an asteroid field, like, and it always tears up the ship.
Just go up and over it. Like it doesn't make any sense.
And then in this movie, they're like, "Oh, they went around it. That's a great idea." Like,
yeah. But Ego comes and saves the day, kills them all.
Yep,
all their ships, and then they escape to planet Contraxia.
Well.
No. They go somewhere else.
Yeah.
They go somewhere else. We go to planet Contraxia, where Howard the Duck is no longer with the Collector. He's on planet Contraxia. I don't know how he got from nowhere to planet Contraxia, but this is where all the Ravengers are at the bar. Yondu shows up, and then Sylvester Stallone. Sylvester Stallone's character talks about how he is exiled, and that business just lost the business of 99 other Ravenger factions because they serviced Yondu's faction.
Yeah.
But we only hear that he's exiled. We don't hear why he's exiled yet.
Well, he broke the code.
Other than breaking the code, yes.
Well, and I think at that point, Sylvester Stallone's character makes reference to it because he's like, "You broke the code," and Yondu talks, and he's like,
"We don't deal in kill. Yeah, we don't deal with dealing kids or deal with kids or whatever." Yeah. And we're kind of just like, oh,
which at that
Peter.
point you think it's only Peter.
Yeah.
And then you find out that's not the case.
Yeah. That's true. The Sovereign hire Yondu. This is also a really funny scene because they're slowly walking up, and then they get like the little tug on the blue carpet, and she's just like sitting there like, I'm just like, why didn't Yondu just walk up to her instead?
Well, and then the carpet runs out too.
Yeah.
So like he still had to like
walk up a little bit. Yeah.
Between him and her. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Sovereign hire Yondu, which I don't get. Like, what was it? Just because he was there? Or, I don't know. Yeah.
Or it's probably known that Star-Lord has had history with Yondu.
Yeah, maybe.
So
maybe. So we're back on that planet where Ego and Manus come in, and basically, I mean, he finds out that's his father. They're gonna go back to Ego's planet and be there while Rocket, Groot, and Nebula are left on the planet to fix the ship. Essentially, Rocket's gonna fix the ship because Nebula and Groot aren't gonna do anything. Yeah. They're all joking on Ego's ship, and Drax invented practical jokes.
Yes, he did.
Or made up practical jokes, which is him and Mantis are a funny pairing.
It works. Like,
it does.
At the end of the day, it works. But I do think it was interesting when Ego gets off the ship with Mantis. You can tell that Mantis is like disturbed by something, and it's the fact that nobody really picks up on that. But it's like a little subtle hint that like, hey, this maybe isn't the guy. And it links back to the first Guardians movie where the Collector had that slave, and she was like you could tell even in that she was disturbed about something. So it should have like a little foreshadowing moment.
Yeah. Mantis shows off her powers on the way to Ego's planet and shows how she can calm people down or put them to sleep, and that's what she does for Ego. This comes back up later with Thanos in Infinity War, so thought that was something to play on to later.
And she uses it again in this movie later.
She does. But you have to explain how she does that. So the song that comes on when they're on Ego's planet when they get there is My Sweet Lord, which is that's what it's not, the song's not called My Sweet Lord, or is it? I don't know. But it's interesting, and like he's the Lord of the planet and stuff like that. That's interesting to me. So Ego explains that he's a celestial, how he was created. He created himself in human form, but he himself is actually the planet.
Yep.
And this is where Drax is asking if he has a penis, and Peter's just like, dude, like, come on, man. I don't. He's like, what? My parents told me about the time that I was born and how I was created all the time, and it was a beautiful story. And I'm just like, oh my god.
Explains why Drax has so many problems.
Like, yes. I gotta know, if he's a celestial and can control literally everything, why did he age himself?
I wondered that same thing. Like when we were talking about the David Hasselhoff stuff too, like because he can recreate that human form and be, I don't know, 25, 28 forever. Like
maybe it was to make Peter feel more comfortable because he was older. He was his dad.
Make it believable that he was his dad. Yeah.
Yondu's crew ends up starting a mutiny.
Yes. Taserface.
Yes. Taserface takes over. Nebula's kind of running it, but Taserface really takes it over as leader, and Rocket just spends like 5 minutes laughing at his name.
Yes.
And honestly, it's really funny. I mean, Taserface is a funny name, and that comes back up later as well.
And I think it's funny because his face looks like he's been like
burned,
distorted or something. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that's where he got the name Taserface, and then like it wasn't. And Rocket never joked about that. He joked about other things, and I was like, okay, well, that was still pretty good. So
yeah. Kraglin asks, they're all breaking away at this point. Nebula is taking their ship with some of the batteries. Because they have the batteries at that point.
Yeah.
So Nebula's going away with her batteries to sell them, and then Kraglin asks what she's gonna do with her money, and basically goes on this long like rant about how she's gonna just rip Thanos apart and get a revenge at this point. And Kraglin's just like, I was just talking about like a pretty necklace or something like that.
A nice hat. So to make the ladies go, oh, that looks nice.
Yeah.
Kraglin is like my favorite character in these movies.
Peter finally gets his catch with dad moment. Creates his orb with his celestial powers. They play catch. I thought that was a cute moment. Mantis mentions that Ego found her in a larva state on her home planet, and we find out in the holiday special that she's actually his daughter.
Oh, yeah.
Continuity.
Well, not necessarily. I mean, he found her in her larva state. Maybe her mom. Maybe Ego got with her mom and had her, and maybe that's just how they're born. I don't know.
I did read something that Mantis was actually in the comics, Mantis is a human.
Yes.
From Earth, but they wanted Peter to be the only human in the movie.
Yeah.
So
I don't know. I think there's a way in which both those things can be true, and at that point, Mantis didn't want. Like, she wasn't trying to lead on too much about what Ego was doing to them yet.
That's true. Maybe I don't think she would lie, but maybe she was lying.
Well, but at that point, like, I think she was trying to figure out where she's going to put her alliance. Is she going to put it in Ego, or is she going to put it in the Guardians? And like,
she doesn't really know the Guardians.
If she went and told them that, hey, Ego's my father, then, like, Star-Lord would have been like, but wait a minute, he's also my father. So, like, how did that happen? So,
yeah,
I don't know.
Okay, so we find out that Yondu is a Kree battle slave before he was freed by Sakaara, which is what you were talking about.
Yep.
So,
that's what I thought. That's what I was trying to remember.
Yeah,
I was like,
and that's how he became a Ravager. Sakaara, Rocky, Sylvester Stallone freed him and made him a Ravager. Rocket asked Yondu why he didn't give Quill to Ego, and Yondu said the same thing Quill did to Ego earlier, that he was small, could fit into tight spaces, and good for thieving, which I thought was funny, because you got to think when Peter was a kid, Yondu just kept telling him that's the only reason why I didn't deliver, like you're still here and I didn't eat you and stuff like that. Yeah. So Yondu and Rocket try to get Groot to follow directions to get the fin, which is really funny because they're locked up at this point.
Yes.
And Yondu's Ravengers crew, Taserface's crew, basically kills all of Yondu's loyalists except for Kraglin, because Kraglin basically kind of accidentally started the whole revolution. I was gonna say, he kind of kicked
it off. So
yeah. So they get locked up because they're gonna kill him. I don't know why they didn't just kill them then, but
yeah, I think Taserface was saying something about making him suffer, but like, or they were gonna sell him off or something, but
maybe. So they're trying to get Groot to go get the fin from the captain's quarters, and Groot brings over several other things.
Yes.
One of my favorite parts was when he had Yondu finally gives him the little medallion of what the Jorah looks like, and Groot's just like no, I just gave you that.
Yeah, and he wears it as a hat next, and then they're like, Rocket's like, why would you think he wants you to wear it like a hat?
And we find out that Groot hates hats, and it's because you think that they're bald or they're not
weirdly
bald,
shaped face, and then they take off the hat and it's a normally shaped face, and Rocket's like, that's why you don't like hats? Like, it was it was very, and I just love that, like, having to translate it, and it's like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. This is where Groot brings the eye. Yes. We talked about this last week.
Yes.
Groot brings an eye back for them, and Yondu's like, no, and the Rocket's like, hold on. We're gonna keep the eye. And Yondu's like, why? And he was like, can you imagine some guy is just gonna wake up and not know where his eye is, and just cracks up and starts laughing about it.
His little thing with stealing people's like body
parts,
enhancements are hilarious, because he does the same thing later with the Winter Soldier. Like, he's like, hey, about that arm.
Yeah,
like,
he wants the arm.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's funny.
Yeah. So Kraglin ends up helping because the crew killed all of his friends, which is a very sad moment.
Mm-hmm.
So they break out. Yondu basically kills literally everyone.
Oh, yeah.
Except for one person that Groot kills. But yeah.
Oh, and Rocket kills a few when they're in the...
Oh, yeah. He shoots a couple people. Yeah. But Yondu pretty much kills everyone else.
I didn't realize, but like Yondu's arrow whistle thing is like overpowered and like one of the most underrated like weapons ever.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this. What if Yondu doesn't die at the end of this movie?
Yeah.
What if he's actually there for Infinity War?
That'd be something.
How does Thanos stop that?
Yeah, I don't know.
Because you would think that he would probably be with the Guardians crew at that point on Titan. And how do you stop that? Like, yeah. I don't see how you stop that.
Yeah, the only thing I was thinking is like the Reality Stone. Well, no, he wouldn't use the Reality Stone for that, but he didn't have the Time Stone yet. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. Because the Power Stone really only affected organic beings, and the whistle's inorganic, or the arrow's inorganic. Yeah, I really don't know. That would have been tough.
Yeah. It's interesting.
But he leaves it for Kraglin, and then Kraglin doesn't know what to do with it. So
not by the end of this movie, no.
Yeah.
So Yondu ends up blowing up the ship except for the escape pod of the ship, which is basically the front of the ship. It breaks it off, and that's their ship for the rest of the movie.
Which is still pretty big. Like,
yeah.
Because when they take it to Ego, you're like, at least I was surprised to be like, wow,
it was
that's
giant.
An escape pod. That is huge.
Yeah.
Because then they have another
It wasn't
ship
really like an escape pod. Yeah, it was just like the front of the ship. They just broke off the back half of the ship.
Yeah.
Taserface calls the Sovereign, and it was like, I want you guys to know, like, here are the coordinates for Yondu's ship. I want you to know who, when you capture Yondu, I want you to know that I want you to tell him that Taserface sealed his fate. And the Sovereign lady just starts laughing at him, and he's just like, and then blows up.
And then he blows up. Yeah.
That was really funny. So they're heading to Ego's planet. Rocket puts the coordinates in to go. They talk about how normal people can only last through 50 jump points, and that they're about to go through 700. Like, whew. And that's where you get their eyes are bulging out of them and stuff. Nebula we're going through here. Nebula finds Ego's planet and tries to kill Gamora. They have another fight scene. Gamora actually saves Nebula, and then Nebula is like immediately starts attacking her again. She's just like, "What is wrong with you?" And that's when we find out she just wanted the sister this whole time and never got her sister.
It was funny explaining this to family members that I watched this movie with, because they're like, "Wait a minute, they're supposed to be sisters, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." They're like, "But they're trying to kill each other." I'm like, "Yeah, that's their whole thing." And then they make up in the end, and they're like, "But they made up in the end." I was like, "Yeah, I know. It's their whole thing." Like
after this moment, they never fight again.
No, they never fight.
So I find that very interesting.
Yeah.
In this scene also, Gamora finds a bunch of dead bodies, and that's where we're like, oh, there's something wrong with Ego.
Yes.
Okay, here we go.
Which she was already kind of on the trail of that, and then that cave just...
Well, she walked in on Drax and Mantis talking.
Yes.
And she was like, what were you about to tell Drax? And she's like, oh, nothing. Nothing at all. So, yeah. Brandy by Looking Glass was... Ego talks about knowing the song because it was Peter's mom's favorite song, and repeats the lyrics, but speaks them, which is honestly really weird.
Yeah.
So the song was released in 1972. Peter was born in 1980. So timeline actually does check out. I had to go back and just make sure that with all the other timeline inconsistencies,
I would like to think they pay attention to it, but sometimes it's like, oh, this makes too much sense. Like, we have to do this, and you can overlook the little things, I guess.
Yeah.
But
so this is where Mantis tells Drax about everything, and
yes,
what kicks everything off. This is now where we get to our Stan Lee moment.
Yes.
What's Stan Lee doing?
So he is in an astronaut suit talking to what I believe are the Watchers.
They are.
So, which at this point we wouldn't know what they are yet. So
correct. So this kicks off a giant theory.
Okay.
That Stan Lee is a Watcher.
Oh.
And Feige actually confirms this, that Stan Lee is playing the same character in every movie.
Oh, wow. That would be cool.
So Stan Lee is a Watcher, and he's actually reporting back to the other Watchers on what he has seen before, like what he's seen, and tells them the stories of all the things that he's been doing. And it's interesting because he talks about in this one that he was a Federal Express man. So you're thinking FedEx.
Yeah.
Which doesn't actually come out until the end of Civil War for Tony Stank. So is it an Easter egg for what's coming up? Or was he just a FedEx guy?
Yeah.
Somewhere on Earth.
That's interesting, because I didn't look at that scene as if he knew the Watchers. It looked as if this is the first time he had met them, but I don't know. That's interesting, because then at the end he was like, "Hey, you're just leaving me here? Like I need a ride," and then they just kind of walked away. But I wonder how they're gonna play that out now that he's passed, like in future movies. I don't know.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a huge. That's a giant theory.
Yeah.
I would like to dig in on that. Maybe dig in onto it, put it on our website, timelinewatch.com.
That would be interesting, especially with What If, and again, this is just my perspective, and we'll get to that eventually, but watching What If, I viewed that as there was one Watcher, that has existed outside of everything.
Yeah.
But in this scene, there were at least 3.
A couple of them, yeah.
So, yeah, that's interesting.
The theory is also that the watcher that is narrating What If is actually supposed to be Stan Lee as well.
Oh.
That's his character.
That's his character in his watcher form. Okay.
Yeah.
I could buy into that.
So, which honestly would have been really cool if Stan Lee was alive for What If and narrated What If. That would have been super cool.
Oh, and that would have confirmed it. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
That would have been super cool if he would have narrated the whole thing. Anyways, things that will never happen.
Yeah.
Let's see. Yondu says it's time to go fight a planet, and Rocket is confused because he's like, fight a planet?
Yeah.
What? Because he doesn't realize the Ego is a planet. And this is where you know, okay, Yondu knows something.
Yeah, he knows a lot more than he's let on up to this point.
Ego shows Peter his expansion plan to take over the universe and how he needs Peter to help take everything over, starting with the plants that he planted at the very beginning of the movie.
Yep.
We find out that all the bodies are Ego's children, and all of them failed and didn't carry the celestial gene. And Yondu delivered all of them and was paid very nicely for it. And then eventually Yondu was like, all right, time out. Now, I wonder, is it because Yondu keeps delivering these kids and they keep dying that he didn't deliver Peter? Or did he know because Peter is a celestial?
Yeah.
Did he sense the celestial gene in him? So he was like, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. That's tough. Because I mean, I don't know. Because Yondu would know what Ego is doing with them. So I assume he would know the children are dying. But like, did he know that Peter was
Did it
celestial?
just so happen that the last kid that you decided not to deliver to him just happened to be the celestial that he needed? Or was it that he knew that he was a celestial?
I don't know if he would have a way to know if he was a celestial or not, but I don't know.
Something that is interesting to me.
But that would mean he would probably have to have delivered Mantis.
Well, no, because Mantis said that he found her.
Okay.
The larva.
Yeah.
I
don't know. Also, how does Ego get money to pay Yondu? Does he just make it?
Make it? Yeah. He doesn't have a job, so.
Well, I know. That was my point.
Yeah.
Like, he's not generating any income, so does he just make it?
For some reason, taking over the universe is not really a good money generator.
Yeah, like Thanos didn't have any money. He just was relying on what he had.
How did he get all these ships?
Yeah.
Time out.
How do you get people to build all this without any...
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
This is a flaw in this system.
Oh, this is a flaw in a lot of movies, not just these, but yes.
Yeah, so Ego admits to killing Meredith, and that's when Peter absolutely loses. It's like, snaps. I was with you until that moment, and now he snaps and they fight. Ego starts sending the ooze to the planets, but Yondu runs a ship into him, stopping it after the fight. Because, Ego ends up like stabbing Peter through the back to make him a battery, essentially. It was like, you're gonna suffer for the next 1,000 years at this point. Which then sends that ooze from the plants everywhere. Why was this never reported?
I was thinking the same thing.
Like, this is a major catastrophe in Missouri.
Yeah.
You never hear about this ever again.
But S.H.I.E.L.D. is gone, so it's not S.H.I.E.L.D., it's something else, but yeah. I don't know.
Yeah, this never comes back.
Well, and I was also thinking, how do you clean that up?
Yeah.
Like, is it something you
Well,
can
it's like a stone now. If you like look at it, it looks like a stone.
Well, I mean, it looks like a stone, but
yeah. But is it like Pompeii where like you can unbury the things that are underneath it?
Or is it like you just got to chip away at it? And
yeah. Interesting.
Nobody ever cares about the cleanup.
No.
That's in every movie. Nobody ever cares about how you're going to clean it up. That's what I want. I want a series on the aftermath. How they cleaned up. But yeah, I digress.
So eventually Peter escapes because Yondu runs a ship into him, stopping him. then Yondu tells Peter why he actually never delivered him,
Yeah.
and that checks out.
Yep.
Kraglin sees the Sovereign start popping up to come get their batteries. They obsessed with these batteries. Like, good
like,
lord.
are they like they can't buy any more? They can't make any more?
Yeah. Like, what?
And these people are so stuck up. Like, and that's how they talk about them. They're like, they're arrogant, like they're full of themselves.
Yeah.
But it's like, good. Like, give it a rest,
Yeah.
people. It's like 6 batteries.
Don't want to get into too many spoilers from
Well,
Guardians 3
I
here,
know, that's
obviously,
why
because
I'm keeping it.
they come back in Guardians 3.
Right. I'm keeping it.
With Adam
Keeping it
Warlock.
tight,
but yeah, so let's see. I want to know. So we talked about Gamora having like the exoskeleton. Gamora, Drax, and Mantis fall out of the ship hundreds of feet.
Yes.
And land like they just jumped like 3 feet.
Yep.
Like, I get, okay, maybe Gamora could do that. Drax is really strong, but Mantis?
Yeah, she should have broken something.
Like, they all should have broken something, in my opinion, but whatever. We get to Rocket. They're talking about making a bomb, but they can't fit into the little holes to get down to Ego's brain. And so Rocket's trying to explain to Groot how to detonate the bomb, and he just keeps going over the same sequence. Like, no, this will explode everything. And I thought that was also funny.
Yep.
The Guardians movies are just comedy movies.
Oh,
to me.
it's great.
They're really good.
Yeah, it's like there's enough action to keep you like engaged in the story, but the comedy is what's the focus.
Yeah.
So.
Let's see. Yeah, so Yondu is able to fight a Celestial with his arrow.
Yeah.
I swear he could have took on Thanos.
I'm pretty
if
sure
he was
he
in
could've.
Endgame, that would have been done.
Yeah.
Like, we wouldn't even be like that giant fight gone.
Yeah.
Easily.
I did want to back up a second about the bomb when Rocket's asking for tape.
Yes.
And okay, how does anybody know what tape is? Like, is tape just now a universal, multiversal thing? And then B, they double down on it, and Drax goes Scotch tape, which Scotch is like a brand of tape,
right?
And Star-Lord goes yes, and Drax goes, oh, I don't have any. He's like, then why did you ask about if you could use Scotch tape? Like, and I thought about that. I was like, so how is this universally like?
Why does he know what Scotch tape?
What Scotch tape? Let alone tape, but Scotch tape.
Like, I could believe other planets having tape.
Tape, yes,
but Scotch tape.
Man,
that brand makes it far.
Yeah. That's what I was just like, what is going on?
Interesting.
Yeah.
Not a product placement.
Not a product placement, but I think it's interesting that but for the joke, I mean, I get the reason for the joke, but like they would have said duct tape, like I would have done the same thing. But
yeah,
Scotch tape, I was like, wait a minute.
So we're at the point where Peter actually figures out how to use his power to generate more than just an orb.
Yep.
And fights back with Ego, which, man, if he was still a Celestial.
So I'm telling you, if he was a Celestial, he could have snapped and Thanos would have been gone. So.
Yeah, oh, for sure.
Well, honestly, so say he kept his Celestial powers. When it came time for him to fight Thanos originally, before Thanos had all the stones, he probably could have taken him.
Yeah. Like when they were on Titan.
Yeah, when they were on Titan.
Yeah.
But neither here nor there.
We digress. Yeah, so they end up exploding the planet. Kraglin gets down there to pick everybody up, but Peter is saying just get out, basically.
Yeah.
They leave Peter and Yondu down there. Yondu ends up saving Peter from the explosion, gets into space, puts the spacesuit onto Peter, and Peter's just like, no, and then Yondu dies.
Back up. What happened to Peter's helmet? That would have
he gave it to Drax to get up.
Oh,
because the helmet has the pack. He put the pack on Drax's back to get Mantis up to the ship.
Oh, and that
the helmet just didn't come down. It just he used
okay, because
the
normally it's like right behind Peter's ear,
yeah,
where it just kind of encompasses his face. But
yeah,
okay, gotcha.
So I assume that was where that went.
Yeah,
but yeah, usually I feel like it is behind the ear, but at least when
I was just assuming he didn't have it for some reason, because he could have just put that on, and then Yondu could have put the spacesuit on, and then he could have killed Thanos. So But these Guardians movies, they make one or two little things differently. And the rest of the timeline doesn't matter.
And it has to involve going into space.
Right.
If Gamora just died in space,
and
or if Yondu didn't die in space.
Yeah, exactly.
Man, James Gunn, why did you have to do this?
Build more spacesuits. That's all you got to do. Rocket built one for each person. He should have built an insurance policy.
Where was Peter's spacesuit?
Right. It's probably still on the ship somewhere.
So Yondu dies.
Yep.
He gets his Ravager funeral, which was nice. All the Ravengers came back and accepted him again. They do the Ravager funeral, which was beautiful.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. No, I mean, that's the end of the movie.
Ties it up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So post-credit scenes, Kraglin. This is where autocorrect got me. Raglan. Kraglin is practicing with the arrow and stabs Drax. Which makes you think, like, maybe you have to be able to see where the arrow goes, which is, how does Yondu?
Right. Well, but he was looking at the screens, so.
That's true.
If you're talking about when he was in the ship.
Yeah. Sylvester Stallone's character is talking to the other Ravengers about stealing some shit.
I think that would be a really cool, like,
the Ravengers
Disney Plus series. Like, I think of, like, what Star Wars has done with Bad Batch, where they took, like, a group of clone troopers that didn't get the Order 66, and what happens after that. Like,
and you could do a cartoon
you could
version
do a cartoon,
of this even.
You could do, you could do very low budget, and I think it'd be cool. Just to keep that story moving.
The next post-credit scene was the High Priestess has to go talk to the council, and she talks about building the pod for Adam Warlock.
Yes.
She says, I call him Adam.
Yeah.
And it ends, who comes in Guardians 3. So there's some revenge coming up.
Mm-hmm. She specifically says to kill the Guardians. Like,
yes.
Yeah. All for stealing like 6 batteries.
Yeah. And then the last post credit, Groot is a teenager now, and Peter's yelling at him as if he's his dad. Mm-hmm. Anger, head, and attitude. And he's like, now I see how Yondu feels.
Yep.
So, yeah. That's Guardians 2. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2, sorry.
Yeah.
So that's going to wrap it up. Be sure to follow us on social media at Timeline Rewatch. You can catch our podcast wherever you get your podcast. You can watch our videos of this on YouTube. And you can even go to our website, timelinerewatch.com, for all your news, updates, and everything. So until next week, have a good one.